Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Philadelphia Eagles at the Carolina Panthers in their Week 7 matchup played October 25th, 2015. As these two teams went out on Sunday Night Football, we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. So starting off in the first quarter, with about 9.5 minutes still left in the first, Mike Tolbert punched it in from 2 yards out. Graham Gano added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Carolina over Philadelphia. So that was the score after one. Then in the second quarter, with a little less than 6 minutes left before halftime, Caleb Sturgis hit a 52-yard field goal to put the Eagles' first points on the board as they cut the Panthers' lead to 4 with the score 7-3 Carolina over Philadelphia still. So then with 3.5 minutes left before halftime, Cam Newton would score from 2 yards out, and Graham Gano hit the extra point, and it was 14-3 as the Panthers extended their lead to 11. But then just before halftime, Caleb Sturgis would kick a 29-yard field goal that had been set up by an interception, and now it was an 8-point game with the score Carolina 14, Philadelphia 6. So that was the score at halftime. Then in the third quarter, Mike Tolbert scored his second touchdown of the game. This one, a 2-yard reception from Cam Newton. Graham Gano added the extra point, and it was 21-6 as the Panthers were in control of this game. But then, with 9.5 minutes still left in the third, Ryan Matthews breaks open a 63-yard run, and the extra point by Sturgis made it an 8-point game once again with the score Carolina 21, Philadelphia 13. And then with 6 minutes left in the third, a little less than 6 minutes, Sturgis hit a 24-yard field goal, and it was now a 5-point game with the score Carolina 21, Philadelphia 16, as the Eagles scored 10 points unanswered to end the third. So now in the fourth quarter, the Panthers would respond with a 35-yard field goal by Graham Gano with about 9 minutes left in the fourth to extend their lead back to 8 with a score 24-16. And then in the closing moments of the game, Graham Gano would hit a 29-yard field goal to seal the deal as he put the Panthers up 27-16. That would be the final score as the Panthers hold on to win. Despite 3 interceptions by Cam Newton, the Carolina defense held the Eagles to just 16 points, and off of those 3 interceptions, the Eagles were only able to turn it into 6 points. They had a possibility that could have been 21 points, but only come away with 6 off the turnovers, as both times it resulted in field goals, and in another time they didn't even get any points. And the Panthers remain undefeated 6-0, 3-0 at home. The Eagles fall below 500 at 3-4, 1-3 on the road. So the Eagles are in third place in the NFC East, and that leaves the New York Giants in first place, and the Panthers are up top in the NFC South as they are 1 game ahead of the Falcons, who are 6-1, actually a half game ahead. So Carolina, they're undefeated, and they did it with a strong, tough defense. They're playing really good ball here in this game. And with Cam Newton's interceptions, it was really not his fault so much as it was balls bouncing all out of the receiver's hands and into the defensive hands. So you can't really fault him so much for that. And of course, he had the interception that led to a field goal right before halftime, and then an interception that led to another field goal there in the third quarter. But that was the only points they were able to get off of those turnovers. And also the Eagles, they had a chance also to get a field goal that they missed late in the game, and then the Panthers came right back and they scored a field goal as they were capitalizing on their opportunities. That was in the fourth quarter, and they just kept pounding the rock with John Stewart. He had a pretty good game, as he had 125 yards and he was eating up the clock. But in this game, Cam Newton was 14 for 24. He had 197 passing yards. He also had 4 carries for 20 yards, 2 total touchdowns in the game, 1 passing and 1 rushing. Of course, he threw that touchdown to Tolbert, who had 2 touchdowns in the game as well. Instead, Newton 3 interceptions, although I wouldn't really fault him necessarily for the balls bouncing out of the receiver's hands. It's what can you do about that? Except maybe just, be a little bit more accurate, but the receivers definitely had a chance to make those catches, and, you're not going to really expect those to end up in the hands of the defenders. Even, one of the interceptions, the ball was just literally stripped away from the receiver, but Sam Bradford, 26 for 46 with 205 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception in the game. He also had 3 carries for 6 yards. And the leading rusher in the game, the Green Lantern, John Stewart, was at 24 carries, 125 yards in this game as he was setting up the touchdowns as they had Tolbert, punch in the 1 touchdown, and he also caught another. As Tolbert had 3 carries for 16 yards. He had 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown off of his only reception, a 2-yard reception. And Stewart had a 36-yard run in the game. Ted Ginn also had a 43-yard run off an end around that set up a score as well. So it was a very impressive play by Ted Ginn Jr. And on the receiving end, Greg Olsen had 3 receptions for 65 yards. Ginn had 5 receptions for 59 yards, which gave him on the day 102 yards total. And for the Eagles, Ryan Matthews had 6 carries for 97 yards, including that 63-yard touchdown. Of course, you take that away, 5 rushes for 34 yards, which is still pretty good. And DeMarco Murray, just 18 carries for 65 yards. Still not really getting a lot of production there out of that backfield necessarily, although that big 63-yard run does make it appear as such. But on the receiving end, Zach Ertz, 5 receptions for 63 yards. Miles Austin, 4 receptions for 52 yards. Darren Sproles, 5 receptions for 31 yards. He also had 3 carries for 9 yards, which gave him 40 total yards on the game. And for the kickers, Graham Gano, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points. He was perfect. And for the Eagles, Sturgis was 3 for 4 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra points. And on the defense, Thomas Davis, 11 tackles. He was all over the field, making big plays. Kuechly as well was making some big plays. He actually looked like he hurt his arm late in the game, but he did return. They put like a brace on it, so he was able to get back on the field. And so hopefully he's all right, and it's not too bad. But Kawann Short, what a huge game for him. 3 sacks. He also forced a fumble as the big 99 was in the backfield, causing terror for Sam Bradford, getting in his face. Also, Jared Allen was doing the same. He had 1 sack as well, and Addison had a sack. As the pass rush was excellent for the Panthers. They played a really good defensive game. Jones had an interception. And for the Eagles, Carroll had an interception, Maxwell had an interception, and Jenkins had an interception, and Kendricks had a sack. We look at the team stats, 21 first downs for the Panthers, 20 first downs for the Eagles. And on third down, the Eagles are actually 7 of 18 on third down, 38%. They went for it twice on fourth down, and they made it once, 50% on fourth down. And the Panthers just 2 for 9 on third downs, 22% conversion rate. Total net yards, 394 for the Panthers. Net yards for the Eagles, 349. And then on the ground, net rushing, 204 for Carolina, 177 for Philadelphia. Net passing, 190 for the Panthers. Newton sacked once. And for the Eagles, 172 netted as Bradford was sacked 5 times by the Panthers defense. Then we look at the penalties in this game. 7 penalties for the Eagles, 46 penalty yards. 5 penalties for the Panthers, 43 penalty yards. In the red zone, the Eagles were not able to get any red zone touchdowns. They were 0 for 2 in this game, 0%. And for the Panthers, 3 for 5, 60% in the red zone. Of course, 2 of those were Tolbert, the other one Newton, as they were getting the ball in the end zone when they got in the red zone, and they were keeping the Eagles out the end zone. On the other end, it was the dead zone for Philadelphia. Philadelphia did have the ball more, surprisingly, 31 minutes and 6 seconds to 28 minutes and 54 seconds for the Panthers. But the Panthers, they do it as you'll hear many pundits saying it was old school. They do it with defense. They do it with running. I mean, back in the day, there used to not even be the forward pass originally in football. It used to be only running. And that's the kind of, the Panthers would fit in that type of game. They could play at any era with the type of team that they have. They got a really tough defense, and their defense was tough enough. And then they went and got Jared Allen as the Bears had a fire sale early on in the season, getting rid of some of their top players. And that benefited the Panthers greatly as they made a good defense even better, as this defense is one of the better defenses in the league, especially the way that they're playing, forcing turnovers. Only one turnover in the game, but the 5 sacks and the way that they were able to hold, the Eagles out of the end zone in the red zone. No red zone touchdowns for Philadelphia, as they had that big play, by Ryan Matthews, that 63-yard touchdown, and that was the only touchdown for the Eagles in this game. So the only time they got in the end zone was that big home run play. Obviously, it's baseball that has home runs, not football, but you know what I mean. I call that a home run when you get a 63-yard run. It's like he knocked it out the park. It's not like as if they went on a big long drive. Whereas the Panthers, they were putting together some decent drives, eating up the clock, and just punching the ball in there, just ground and pound. And they've got a really good line. They're really good up in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And they line up, they say, we're going to run. Why don't you try to stop us? And you really got to respect that. A team that can just line up and doesn't care if you know what play they're running. They're still just going to run it right down your throat. And that's what football's all about. That's that blue collar. And that's fitting that they are in blue, as they are a tough team. They win in some slobber knockers as they play some hard smash mouth football. And Carolina undefeated still, and they're going to be in a big game next week. But right here, they win a big one on Sunday night, prime time, in front of a nationwide audience, as they put the Eagles below 500. As the Eagles had been, winning some games, but now they put them back in the loss column, and they remain in the win column. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.